I'll let him know.
Okay.
Yeah, I echo that. This is John Sweeney out in Los Angeles, a 40-year attorney. It's a pleasure to be on the show once again, especially with you, Ms. Lee.
Well, thank you, sir. It looks like you're having some nice weather out there this morning, too.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
And also, Attorney Banks.
Good morning, Attorney Lee. I'm Vanita Banks, and I am from the Chicagoland area and am just so happy to participate in this program this morning with you, Attorney Lee. I specialize in cybersecurity and privacy law and teach cybersecurity and privacy law as well.
Good.
Well, I'd like to, I guess, get started with one of our first topics of the day, which is still a current and ongoing event, which is Biden's first 100 days. You know, as we are all aware, we just recently sworn the current president, Joseph Biden, on January 20th, was that last week, which was great. It went without incident to add, but you know, one of the current events that people always discuss, especially when a new president comes into office, is the first 100 days, like new legislation, new bills, whether they're reversing the previous president's policies. And I'd like to start off and say, you know, what do you guys think about what President Biden's done so far?
Well, he seems, I'll just speak real general and real. He is sitting down. He is undoing some of the things that most of us thought were wrong. He is trying to reestablish relationships with our allies. He seemed to be serious about his job and not for personal interest of himself and his family. Of course, it's a difficult job, but he's sitting down and he's attempting to address it in a logical manner. And that gives me a great deal of comfort.
I agree with that.
Go on,
Go
Vanita.
ahead.
No, you go, Vanita.
I agree with that sentiment, Milton. The first thing that he has addressed, and I agree with it, actually there are 4 priorities. At the top of that is addressing COVID-19. You know, as we sit here today, there are over 101 million cases worldwide and 25 million in the United States. And we're getting awful close, sadly and unfortunately and unnecessarily close to over 433,000 deaths here in the United States. And so the priority that President Biden has placed on addressing COVID-19 and ensuring that there is a coordinated, strategic plan to disseminate the vaccines across the country, particularly and including vulnerable communities, including African American and Black and Brown communities and rural communities. He's off to a great start with his executive orders, including rejoining the World Health Organization and addressing COVID based on the science, as well as rejoining the Paris Climate Accord and some of his executive orders, which address systemic racism, are commendable as well. And let me just stop there. He's off to a great start, in my view, by addressing COVID first, and then followed by the economy. And the legislation that's at the top of his agenda is the Rescue Act, which is going to get much needed funds into the hands of everyday Americans.
Can we pause for a moment? We have our first caller of the day. And can we let the first caller through?
Yes, I think you're correct. He's off to a great start. However, until we as African Americans not need to be so enthusiastic that we forget our aim. Until I see police reform, where if a cop just shoots you running away or shoots you while you're in a car, that things like this are no longer allowed, and that real justice would be when they are convicted of like first-degree murder and things like that, and not just a slap on the wrist. Until we start seeing police reform, we don't need to get overly optimistic. And also the other issue is the medical situation that's going on, where we're being killed, as far as I'm concerned, because of malpractice or not being attended to while we're in the hospital. Some issues need to be established there, and just giving people a course, a 2-hour course on discrimination, it's a joke. Until they start pulling these nurses' licenses and these doctors' licenses when they are found to be with malpractice because they're just refusal to attend to patients that are in their facility. We need to not get too overly optimistic.
I didn't hear her.
Okay, well, thank you.
Did
Well,
she have a,
so in summary, first she started off by saying that she thought that she agreed with some of the things we were saying about President Biden, but she also felt like some things were going to be missed, like police reform. She said something regarding real justice and how there's still, a discrepancy in how minorities are treated with police officer interactions. And then on top of that, she brought up the issue of medical situations whereby minorities aren't treated equally with the medical malpractice claims, and how we're not holding doctors and hospitals accountable for that. And I think she kind of finished out by saying a 2-hour course on like diversity and inclusion is not sufficient for training these people.
I didn't get a chance to chime in on your question or your invitation for comments on Biden's first 100 days. First of all, I think it's clear that competent adults are now in charge. Amateur hour is over. How professional is the press secretary, who's very cordial to both sides of the media, from Fox to CNN, no rude name calling and talking about fake news. So that's the first thing. Now, it appears to me, and it's clear to me, that there are two parallel tracks that the Biden administration is going down. One, restoring our place in the world, and two, altering the disastrous domestic policy of the Trump administration. I think Vanita mentioned the World Health Organization. We're rejoining that. Re-engaged in climate control. I just read in the paper this morning in the New York Times that the United States and Russia had reached a 5-year extension on a nuclear arms reduction deal. We are now restoring our moral authority in the world to invite everyone to democracy. That's what a lot of damage has been done, but we have our problems in this country, but we're still the shining beacon on the hill as far as democracy is concerned, and everybody looks toward us. So that's the world track that Biden is taking us down. The domestic track which is a little more urgent now, or at this time, because of COVID. COVID, clearly there's a plan. Clearly there's a plan for getting the vaccine out there, which there was no plan before. There's a national plan regarding mask wearing during travel. It clearly is a a concerted effort that is well thought out, which wasn't the case in the prior administration. I'm a tennis fan. I was watching the tennis from Australia because the Australian Open is coming up, so they have these build-up tournaments toward the Australian Open over there in Australia. And do you know that there was a tournament in Adelaide, Australia, where they're allowing 80 to 90% capacity, no masks, because they have the virus totally under control. Now, they're an isolated country. They're an island, Australia. They're a continent. We pretty much are isolated from Europe. Had we had competent adults in charge when this thing broke, United States and then our neighbors to the north, who are doing much better than us, Canada, we wouldn't have probably 80% less deaths in this country. So the economy, immigration issues, all the domestic new policies, including police reform, and Biden is going to keep his promise, I believe, in having our backs, because we put him as African Americans in office. There's no question about that. So I think we're off to a good start on these first 100 days, first month.
And if I may just chime in again, you know, there's just a feeling when I wake up in the morning and look at the paper, I'm not looking for what is he doing for himself today? What has he done against the people today? And that's a relief that I never thought I would be thinking about, but I'm appreciating it. I don't think he's going to satisfy everybody. He's not perfect, as you see, but he's attempting to do what's right for this government and for the people, and not just line his pockets. And that's what we've had for 4 years, worrying about, thinking about what is this person going to do that's going to harm us? And what is he doing? What is he doing and going to do that's going to enrich himself? We don't have that now. I think Biden is going to be faced with a great resistance from the GOP. It seems like they're lining up to do it. And they're still promoting fake news and fake and lies, but it doesn't seem to be as effective as it was last year even. So we're in for a fight, but like John Lewis said, it's a good trouble. It's good trouble. You know, I'd rather not have it, but we're in it.
Attorney Lee?
You know what the most interesting, I was going to say, you know what the most interesting development about Joe Biden becoming president is, going back to the COVID responses, just the fact that he acknowledged that it was a current situation that needed to be handled. You know, a lot of the reason why we didn't have sufficient or effective COVID responses, the president denied it for so long. Right. You know, he presented to the American people that it wasn't a situation. He would have these meetings where he'd have the staff standing behind him without masks on. And then finally one day he gets COVID, and now we got to do a COVID response. And that's after a couple 100,000 people had already passed from it. So I do think, going back to what Mr. Sweeney has said, the COVID response should be one of the principal concerns right now, because it was ignored for so long that we've actually made the situation far worse than it should have been, unfortunately, with the passing of others. And also, one of the things that I personally, based off my review of what kind of Joe Biden has presented to us, is it seems to me that his administration is going to be almost trying to promote fairness again. You know, not what's more or less makes people happy. I think what he's trying to move forward is what's fair and what's better for the greater good of the American citizens here. So I think that's kind of what I've gleaned from his presentation of material so far.
All excellent points, Attorney Lee. I agree with you that the initial response to COVID-19, it was shameful and just absolutely shameful. And I don't know of another president in his inaugural speech actually call out to African Americans and say that I know that you had my back. That's unprecedented. And then also addressing systemic racism, acknowledging it directly in his remarks. And then we are also witnessing the most diverse cabinet in the history of this nation as well. And these are all accomplished leaders that are coming together to lead our nation. And I wanted to address the caller's point about the inequities in the medical system. And we know that COVID-19 has exposed and laid bare what so many of us have always known, that there have been disproportionate disparities and long-standing social determinants of health and disparities in the treatment of African Americans and minorities in the medical system. And these disparities have resulted in African Americans contracting COVID-19 and dying at estimated rates that are 3 times that of white Americans. So I'm hoping that if there's any silver lining, and it's very difficult to see one, that in this historic moment, that there will be a long overdue reckoning of the systemic racism that exists in the medical system, and that we will ensure as we move forward that racial equity is infused in the medical system moving forward.
Let me say this, that on your point, Anita, we as a race have to get it in our mind that we are entitled to, that we should go to doctors. We're entitled to equality in the medical treatment field. We as African Americans traditionally, this generation is changing, is getting better, but older generations, my generation and definitely Milton's generation, we are by and large not used to going to doctors as we grew up, as much as white people. So we have this generation and older generations like myself, we have to really change our whole attitude toward medical care. Go to the doctor, taking advantage of all that is afforded you. For example, I got my first COVID shot yesterday, and it was at Dodger Stadium, and it was very organized. We got in and out within a half hour, and 15 minutes of that time, they keep you, they have to keep you 15 minutes to make sure that you don't have any adverse effects and fall out while you're driving or something like that. So 15 minutes of it was in a bullpen so that you couldn't drive away, to make sure you had no ill effects. So go online, find out where they're offering. If you're not computer literate, somebody in your family is, and get those appointments. I know that 65 and over are eligible now, and healthcare workers and frontline workers. Get out there and take advantage. We as African Americans have to get over the fact that we were underserved historically since slavery and before in the medical field, and take advantage of it.
I'm going to have us take a pause for a moment. I believe we have to take a commercial break really quickly. Callers, please stay on the line as we go for this commercial break. And then when we return, we'll be able to answer the calls and continue the conversation. I don't know if we went to commercial break. It's supposed to go.
We're still live though?
I believe so. Supposed to go to
I think we are. Yeah, I
We
think we're
typically
on.
are.
Yeah. Vanita,
I think we're still on. Yes.
yeah. Oh, we're still live, okay.
Oh, the commercial's going. We just can't. We for some reason we can't hear it. The commercial is on though.
Okay. Vanita, you grew up in Indianapolis, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Sure you knew some Pinckneys, correct?
Probably, yes.
Okay. The dentist, A.D. Pinckney?
I'm sure, yes, growing up. I went to
Oh.
Shortridge High School. I bet they did too.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you ask a question?
To me? No, I didn't say anything.
Oh,
Are these friends of yours from Indy?
what's that?
The Pickney? Are the Pickneys friends of yours from Indy?
Relatives.
Oh, okay.
Relatives. My mother's sister was married to Dr. Pinckney for 70 something years, 60
Wow.
years. They both passed on, but Dr. Pinckney was a Morehouse graduate, and my mother's sister was a Spelman graduate, and that's where they met in the 40s. And he went to medical school at Howard, and then they went to out to Indianapolis, and they were there from the 50s.
Wow. Well, I was born and raised there, went to high school there.
Okay. What high school did you go to?
I went to Shortridge High School, which if you search the school, you'll find it's a public high school. And
I know.
Kurt Vonnegut, the author, he went to Shortridge, and he wrote that he wished that everyone could have a public high school education like his education at Shortridge.
Well,
Academic high school, we had to take a test to get in. And go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
My cousin Pat Pinckney, I'm sorry, Donna Pinckney went to Shortridge.
Wow.
Vanita?
Yes, Milton?
In Indianapolis, maybe Ms. Lee could answer the question. I recall when I visited there's a statue in the middle. I don't want to say it's in the middle of the city, but it's in the middle of something. Big round circle, memorial circle, with a man on a horseback, and the horse is rearing up, and a slave down at the feet.
Yes, that's on Monument Circle, and that was recently like part of a debate because they were deciding whether they wanted to, when they were taking down these old statues, they're like, should we remove the slave at the bottom? But I guess technically speaking, what it is if you could tell it's a slave, but it's a man who looks like a black man, but he has chains on his feet, but he's sitting at the base of the person on the statue.
He had every appearance of a slave as one could have, other than have a real slave. I was wondering, has that statue been removed yet?
No, it was the subject of conversation. I think they were discussing the costs of the statue. But as till today, I mean, I haven't been to the circle lately. Due to COVID, they actually changed the rules on the circle for a little bit, so they like controlled the traffic. So I haven't been for a while, but I believe it's still there. We have 30 seconds till we go live. Again.
Vanita, they lived across the street from Grandview Golf Course, a country club, that where that is?
Yes, yes.
Section. That's where they lived. It's very, very nice area.
The Pickneys. I'm sure I do know them or know of them.
Nathaniel knew Dr. Pinckney because he was
We're back live. Thank you for joining us back again to Legal Issues of Today. I'm Attorney Jennifer Lee with my co-hosts John Sweeney, Milton Grimes, and Vanita Banks, and we're going to continue the discussion that we had before. I believe we still have a caller on the line. If we could put that caller through.
Yes, this is Pierre. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to thank the attorney.
Can you speak up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, speak up, please.
Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to say to the attorney that I just believe that the Biden administration has to go really hard on these insurrectionists, and the president really has to go and speak to the American people about what's at stake, because we're not going to get any cooperation out of the Republicans. And that's all I wanted to say. And the one question I had for the two attorneys from L.A., the new local prosecutor doesn't seem to be doing that good. You got any ideas or any comments on that? And I'll take it off the air. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Pierre.
I believe that the public elected a new district attorney because the public, majority of the public, did not feel that the former district attorney was doing the job that the public desired, and that this new district attorney is a person that the people elected, and his policies and rules changes should be implemented and not be at the whim of some deputies and some judges who were complacent and comfortable with the injustice that was perpetrated by the prior district attorney. So I'm wishing him success in the implementation of many of his policies. I can't line them up now and say which ones I do agree with, which ones I don't, but the not alleging the 3 strikes and enhancement, the gang enhancements, which has been unfairly used, especially against young brown and black men and women, I'm totally supportive of. So I'm wishing him the best.
I didn't hear the question, but from Milton's comments, it sounds like he asked about the DA in Los Angeles. Is that correct, Milton?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So I have a lot of inside information on that because I've been contacted by representatives of the new district attorney office because they're going to follow through on reopening many police shooting investigations that Jackie Lacey, the former district attorney's office, refused to prosecute. And I've done several cases against the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department that I've won large verdicts in jury trials on. And I'm here to tell you that a lot of those cases that I've tried civilly and won, they could have been prosecuted as criminal cases, and those officers should be in jail. There is no statute of limitation on murder, and some of these killings, particularly the ones where these deputies are chasing ink or trying to get a one of these sheriff click gang tattoos, could be charged as murders. So I'm glad that the district attorney is following up on that promise that he made during his campaign.
Also, looks like we have another caller on the line. If he could.
Hey, you know, it's embarrassing to see how each week you come on and try to melt that bill, the so-called attack on the Capitol. Well, nobody has interviewed the Sergeant of Arms because all he's got to do is push one button, and the entrances to those chambers are sealed and shuttered by a 1-inch thick titanium door. One button had to be pushed. The only reason those protesters got in there is because the people who were in charge in those chambers allowed them to come in. There should have been no confrontation at the door. The minute they heard that the rioters were coming to that chamber, all they had to do is push one button, seal all the entrances, and make their escape through the underground tunnel. So that was a whole big lie. And the way you're talking about health care, if somebody lays around and gets 300 or 400 pounds, eating a bunch of pig feet and red flanks, the doctor don't want nothing to do with you. After you, it's like some carpenter or glass person going out and fixing windows, and you keep on busting the windows. It's a bunch of garbage. You just misleading our community and to destructive ways. And I know you make your money off of when a policeman kills somebody, but in most cases they deserve what they get. So I just wish you'd stop spreading propaganda. I wish you would do that. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question, sir. Are you still there? Sir, are you still there? Well, I just want to ask you, because that's the first I heard about pushing one button, the doors sealed.
Yeah.
Has anyone, Milton, Vanita, Attorney Lee?
Do not know about the button, but I did listen to an interview of Maxine Waters. I think it was the beginning of the week, where she said that she had an hour phone call with the chief of police of the district. And he satisfied all of the questions and concern about safety in the Capitol and whether or not they would be safe. She said that she barricaded herself, for lack of a better word, in her own chamber or her own office there, and that's where she took safety at, but that she had been satisfied the day before when making an inquiry about the safety and what could happen and what would happen, and she was assured they would be safe. And that promise did not fulfill itself.
When you have the enemy from within, like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, saying to her constituents that blood will have to be shed and that we can't let them take away our freedom. What freedom is anyone taking away from them? What she really means is that we can't let Black people take over in this country. They're our slaves and they will always be our slaves. That's what she meant. That's the problem. It's the enemy from within. And when you have congressmen and women and senators who refuse to vote on impeachment of Trump or to convict Trump in an impeachment trial, there is an enemy within.
Well, what this gentleman raised, though, is the prospect that supposedly there was a tour of some people the day before of the Capitol.
Yeah.
I know about this one button thing, but when I heard Maxine Waters, she was assured of the safety. There must be, well, there's suspicion on my part that there was a definite enemy from within in this particular situation, because I just can't see the crowd gaining that much steam and that much
Access.
to the Capitol without more resistance having been put in place, even at a moment's notice. It just doesn't make sense.
So we're gonna take another quick commercial break, and we're gonna come back to that comment. Please stay tuned to Legal Issues of Today.
I would tell someone that's on the
There it
fence
goes.
for
Can you
getting
hear
the
it?
vaccine. I was too. I
It's
got it
over
after speaking with my husband and loved ones and listening to the experts. They said that it was safe, and I trust that.
First responders are now eligible. It's Our Shot, Hoosiers. Learn more at ourshot.in.gov. A message from the Indiana Department of Health.
So Milton,
Look, money is tight for everyone right now.
Milton, if you got your first,
And you sure don't need to get hit with a big unexpected bill.
have you gotten a COVID shot yet?
Now, right? How are
No.
you paying the bill? The transmission, that could be over $3,000. The engine, up to $6,000. Even minor repairs like your air conditioning can hit your wallet hard. Here's the good news. If you have a car, truck, or SUV that's $19.99 or newer, you can stop paying for car repairs right now. That's right. With Protect My Car, when your car breaks down, we pay your repair bill for you. Just call 800-793-0931 now to get started.
You guys hear me?
Transmission, air
Yes.
conditioning. And
I feel
so much
like
more.
there's because I don't know if you guys heard everything that Larry said. There's a couple of things that I wanted to address that he said.
Right now.
He kept saying that we're filling people with propaganda because people should die because most people that are killed by police probably deserve to be killed. And most people Black people that are
Are you
requesting
trying
medical
to
help
grow your
shouldn't get it
hair?
because they
No
eat
matter
300
how
and
you
400
grow
pounds of
it,
pork
braided,
their whole
curly,
life.
or coily, growing and
So that was
maintaining
his
healthy hair starts with a
argument.
healthy scalp.
I don't know if you guys can hear him
Reach
say
your
that,
hair
so I
goals
don't.
with Royal Oil. Achieve a healthier
In
scalp
short,
and healthier hair in just 3 weeks with the Royal Oil Collection by Head & Shoulders. Respect the crown with regular use of anti-dandruff products.
Attention anyone with too much credit card debt. Do you feel frustrated or even struggle to pay down your monthly credit card bills? I'm Bob with DebtBlue, here to tell you about a special program that credit card companies have tried to keep hidden. If you are struggling with too much credit card debt, we could absolutely settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. That's bad news for credit card companies, but big savings for you. At DebtBlue, we can help you virtually eliminate your credit card debt faster than you ever imagined possible with a low monthly payment you can afford. We even help eliminate the risk by guaranteeing your success. Call 800-691-8045 to see how much DebtBlue can save you. Before you chase consolidation or even think about declaring bankruptcy, talk to us first. Call 800-691-8045 now to learn how much money you could save. Call 800-691-8045. 800-691-8045. 800-691-8045.
Are you looking for big savings? Have we got the answer for you? Jimenez Mr. Discount Home Store. Everything you need for your home.
one more minute till we're back live.
Name retailers, Jimenez Mr. Discount has at a much lower price. Beat the cold with their oil space heater special, only $20 for a limited time. Need flooring? They have over 20,000 square feet of flooring available at their 6425 English Avenue location. Need power tools? They've got those too. Come by and pay them a visit. You will be amazed at their savings. Jimenez Mr. Discount Home Store, located between Lafayette Road and West Pike Plaza Road, inside the shopping center, and also at 6425 English Avenue on the east side of town. Call them at 812-603-1319 or 812-603-2902. At Jimenez Mr. Discount, you get big savings for all your home needs. Jimenez family, thank you for your business.
Welcome back to Legal Issues of Today. Again, I'm Jennifer Lee, and I'm here with my co-hosts, and we'd like to continue the discussion. One of the things that we kind of just left off on was something that I'm not sure anyone was able to verify. That was about the 1-inch thick security doors. But there was something that I wanted to share. I had seen an article, and I'm not quite sure because they didn't provide the officers' names, and there were some police officers that mentioned that their superior, going back to the concern that some of the arguably they knew that this was going to occur or something like this protest was going to occur and that was going to get out of hand. And so there was a police officer who apparently had given a statement to one of the media outlets saying that none of the supervisors, like his, ironically, because we saw the chief of police had retired, he didn't advise the police officers so they actually were not alerted to the fact that
Jennifer, you're breaking up a lot.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Maybe, I'm going
It's
out.
better now. Maybe if you speak a little slower.
Oh, okay. My apologies, everyone. I'll keep it short that I don't know why my sound is going in and out.
You
But
sound
in
great
short,
now.
okay. Well, in short, I read an article that a police officer who worked for the DC Police had mentioned that they were not advised that the protest was going to be occurring that day at all, which is why they were not as prepared as they could have been for the situation. And to add to that, this police officer implied that on that day, the majority of the white officers did not come into work either. So to further, I guess, signify that they knew that this was going to be a potential situation and kind of left them hanging there. So I didn't see any additional articles about it. But it was interesting because my greatest concern, which kind of has been presented time and time again, was the fact that we were ill prepared for this. I don't want to call it seemingly simple attack, but they didn't show up with tanks. They just showed up with a group of people who were able to storm a Capitol building in DC, which is, I've had the opportunity to go to the building in the Capitol, and it has a lot of security within the building. So the fact that they were unable to, I guess, protect themselves from this threat or even prevent the entry into the building, into our congressmen and women's offices is still shocking and frightening to me.
Absolutely.
But
I think that not so much an inside job. I just think that no one knew the gall, the temerity, the boldness that these people would show up to Washington, D.C. with bombs and guns and, military gear on. It's never happened before. And I think they were unprepared and they were ambushed, basically. They weren't ready. I think that was, it was a case of not being prepared more than an inside job of, so it's very, very, very shocking. I tell you what, it won't happen again.
Don, I
it will not.
Don, I want to believe what you're saying, but I'm not comfortable with that conclusion because of the indication that so much wasn't done that would be typically done. So much was said to assure you that we are ready for this potential and this possibility. If it had been hypothetically or conjecture, if it had been Black Lives Matter, I think we would have seen more resistance by the respective agencies involved.
Of course, there's no question about that. We saw the Black Lives Matter peaceful march that mimicked Dr. King's march on Washington, and we saw people standing around the reflecting pool at the base of the Lincoln Memorial. And what did we see at the base of Lincoln Memorial?
Guns.
We saw a phalanx of armed government officials with face coverings on, not keeping the peace, but intimidating.
Yes.
They were there for intimidation.
I don't give them. John, I've seen too many, even with the march I did for the George Floyd in Simi Valley. I'm going, wow, the cops are awful calm and they just every corner. And then I saw it behind buildings were squads, like 30, you know what I'm saying? Waiting for the crowd, the marchers to get out of line and start some mess. You follow me? And it wasn't just one, and they had taken place. They had taken position where the hills and the buildings would not be. You couldn't see them from the marching area. So I just don't give them that. I think they knew more than what they're led into.
I would like to say that there was,
I agree.
Of course, we witnessed a total lack of preparedness. There was a failure of security. They were, underprepared, but they should have been prepared because there was all kinds of chatter on social media. There had been the fomenting of these groups that are not new, that have emerged. They've just become more emboldened, and so and the intelligence community knew that and have stated over time that domestic terrorism is the biggest threat to our national security here in the United States. So this is not new. We tend to, not have very long memories. We talked last week about Tom Metzger, for example. He won a primary congressional election in California. And when I'm learning that there were over 21 former military veterans that have been arrested as a result of the Capitol bombing. You know, we forget about Timothy McVeigh. He was at least tied to white supremacy. More recently, the self-radicalized Dylan Roof in South Carolina. So these groups have existed going back to the founding of our nation. And every time there's a step forward in terms of process, they emerge again. And so that's what we're seeing. What do you think, John?
Let me say this, Vanita, that they were there in Washington, these white supremacist groups, but they were waiting for the command from their commander-in-chief to go and do something. Go, I'm sorry, Attorney Lee.
I'm sorry. We have apparently quite a few callers on the line now. I guess this conversation has sparked a lot of inspiration, if you will. So let's see what some of the callers have to say.
You know what? Both those chambers were fitted with 1-inch titanium shutters. At the push of a button, you know, you see Star Trek where the doors go back and forth, they're on air. You can look and see when they were having all the race riots in the 60s, they fitted those chambers with these shutters. So now the question is, who's in charge of the chambers? Nancy Pelosi is in charge of the House chambers. She could tell her sergeant of arms at any time, push the button and seal the chambers. All she have to say, seal the chambers. And the chambers will be sealed. That way there's no confrontation. There's nobody coming in that private space. Why? Because if they use a 50 caliber machine gun, they can't shoot through an inch-thick titanium oxide shield. So all that is a conjecture that you're using now, and you're trying to blame people that have nothing to do with what happened in Washington of a crime that they have not committed. And you don't see Justice Roberts. He's not going to take any part in an impeachment trial because he knows it's a phony political scam. So I think lawyers, I don't know about you, what your training is up to a certain extent, but you ought to be able to see through what's going on unless you're trying to promote to get more criminal cases on police officers. So I think that you're misleading the public and you're spewing propaganda every time you come on, because the stuff that's happening now is to more divide, and the impeachment is not going to happen. We know that, but you're leading people on. You need to talk about some other topics other than that, than what we're doing to ourselves as a people and destroying ourselves. And our tribalism is working against us, definitely. And that's what they tried to stop, the tribalism curse, when they had segregation and Jim Crow, to let us learn how to get along with each other and how to do business with each other. If that will last another 20 years, we would have been just fine now. But because some people wanted to come out from under what we needed to do, then that's what we get now, and trying to make conjecture and hay out of something that's nothing but lions.
I'm not
mean it too.
Not this inside information. Go ahead, John.
No, let me say that we on this program are not giving the president and those folks who incited the insurrection a pass. We know that the chance of convicting him in these impeachment articles of impeachment are slim, because it goes down political lines, and you need a supermajority of the Senate to vote with him, and they just don't have that because they're loyal to Trump, because they want to stay in office. But it has to be talked about. The case has to be prosecuted. The impeachment has to be pursued, because what was done there on January 6th is the most heinous act in the history of our republic. Actually going in and taking over the Capitol. We can't just not talk about it. We can't just go on to other topics, as the caller suggested. It has to be talked about. Something has to be done. And although it may not work, and we aren't under the delusion that we're going to get a conviction out of this, but something has to be done as a deterrent.
And our right to talk about it, based upon the information and belief that we have, sir, is our constitutional right of free speech. So I hope that you can understand and accept that.
So we have
and I agree
other
that there has
callers
to
on
be
the line.
Could I just say that I agree that there has to be
Go
accountability
ahead.
before we can move forward in unity. Everybody, wants to say, well, let's move forward, let's put it behind us. But before we can do that, we need to make sure that those that were involved in the incitement of insurrection and are held accountable. And if this does not constitute, if these actions by the former president does not constitute high crimes and misdemeanors by inciting violence against the American government, the U.S. government, by making false claims of election fraud in the months leading up to the election, and on the day telling those that gathered that if you don't fight, you're going to lose your country. I don't know what is.
That's the definition. I don't.
I just don't know what is. And so I think that we have to address this issue, and then we can move forward to, in unity. Hopefully, that's possible.
Okay, we have another caller.
Yes.
Hello?
I had something else to say, but I will say this as well. Let us not allow the House Negroes, I'm sorry I have to say it like that, the House Negroes to deviate from the true issue of the criminal activity that took place on January the 6th. It was grievous to the nation, and you would have to be in a coma if you did not understand how grievous that was. And if it had been 50 black protesters in silent march to the state capitol, there would have been busloads of police, helicopters, and everybody else there. And we know that. History shows us that. We saw that within the last 2 years, okay? So don't let people distract you from stating the facts, which you have done very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's sad. No, it's sad. But don't let them distract you, because that's all in the plan, all right? All in the plan.
We'll have one more caller after this. Thank you, Mary, for calling in today. Hello?
Hello, and thank you to your esteemed guests. Great answers. Folks have, they're angry. Trump supporters are pretty angry. We saw that on the 6th, and so they want to use every excuse. Being you guys don't not come from a family of attorneys. I'm a military veteran, and our oath was to the Constitution. And what happened up there was a direct violation of Constitution. It wasn't free speech. Free speech or free expression would have been a peaceful redress. A peaceful redress. Matter of fact, you could even burn the flag, according to Texas versus Johnson, with Scalia giving the majority opinion. I know he said later on he regretted that, but really it was the right decision, because it's just a piece of cloth. So burning the flag, even as freedom of expression, would have been fine. Once you entered a federal building, the person they called thought that was fine. Go downtown and try to enter the federal building downtown in Indianapolis and see what's going to happen. Now, my point to you guys is we keep getting comments from right-wing black folks who keep saying, well, how come black folks just don't do crime? Now, you just mentioned what happened at the 6th up there, and they barely rounded up 100 and some people, and the Justice Department is toiling whether they're going to charge others. Kyle Rittenhouse is at home. The girl that was in Nancy Pelosi's office is at home. Can you please speak to me that the issue is not people not doing crime. The issue is the equal distribution of justice. And I got that from Chief Justice Bernadette Johnson of Louisiana, the letter she wrote to her colleague talking about we are part of the problem, and that's why they protest. And she's talking about the equal distribution of justice. When we can do a misdemeanor and get a felony sentence, and white folks do a felony and get a misdemeanor sentence. Can you speak to that, please? That's the problem that we're having here. We're never going to have people don't, but there's levels of crime in the legal system, and we shouldn't always get the death penalty or a death sentence for doing little bitty misdemeanors. Can you guys speak to that? Thank you for taking my call.
Okay. We only have a few moments left on the show. Do any of the panelists have any thoughts about what Mr. Imhotep just stated?
I think we've expressed in earlier shows the need for a change in our criminal justice system. I've read the memorandum by by the Supreme Court of the state of Washington as to the 9 justices signing on to there's been systemic racism within their justice system for decades, if not centuries. So I think we're all on this panel committed to the change in the seeking of justice, sir, for all people, and definitely for Black people. That's what I have to say.
Well, I think it goes deeper than the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system are the leaves on the trees, but the roots are systemic racism in our society, every aspect of our society, hiring, workplace, every aspect of our society is permeated with racism because that's what this country was built on. And so I think this is a great, not start, but continuation of the struggle under Biden. I think that his policies of racial equality, I think it's going to make a tremendous difference in the 4 years that he's president, maybe 8 years, and then hopefully, if not 4 years or 8 years for Biden, that'd be the first 4-year term for Kamala Harris. So I think we're on the right track. I think that the struggle continues, but it's just not the criminal justice system. It's systemic racism that at the root of the criminal justice system.
Well, I want to thank all of my co-hosts today. They did an outstanding job answering questions and filling you in on the current event and news of today. And I also want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. Please stay warm, please stay safe, and please be blessed. Thank you for